So my name is Caroline. I represent CTU Training Solutions. PropAcademy is a faculty of CTU, so we work together quite often. CTU represents the host of today, whereas PropAcademy and Angelique Matthews represent the actual speakers for today's event. I'm going to give each of them a chance to properly introduce themselves. And I think, Charlotte, we can start with you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Charlotte from PropAcademy. I will be assisting out in the chat box, so please use this and feel free just to let us know if there's anything that I can do to assist or any queries that you have. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlotte. Courtney, over to you.
Hello, everybody. For those who haven't yet met me, my name is Courtney from PropAcademy. I've been involved in the real estate aspects since I was about 7 years old, with my mom being an off-plan property developer. Us kids were sucked in to earn our keep, be it on site, assisting clients, or running businesses by her side. PropAcademy is an online training provider. It's actually the real estate faculty of CTU. And we offer you all your real estate courses and qualifications. We like to host webinars like these just to keep the industry up to date and on top of their game. So today we have Angelique Matthews, who is going to keep us entertained for the next hour or so. So I'll hand over to her.
Thank you, Courtney. So as I've been introduced, I'm Angelique Matthews from Property Inspect. I'm the Business Development Manager, and today I'm going to just share a bit of my journey on how I came into the industry, and then also share some tips and tricks on what I found worked in the inspection world. So, yes.
Fantastic. And just a reminder to our audience, throughout the session, you're welcome to post your questions in the chat box. We normally try to leave questions for answering at the end of the session. If we do find a question can be addressed throughout, we'll do that, and that will mostly be will help out throughout the session. But preferably, post your questions so that we can gather them together and answer them by the end of the session. All right. So I think, Angelique, let's get right into it. So the first question I want to ask you is, what was your experience with rental inspections before joining the Property Inspect team?
Thank you. So my journey started working in an agency for a few years, and I picked up a need to be able to separate inspections from the agency. And I opened up my own business doing property inspections on behalf of agencies like yourself. And I did that for 12 years, and it was an amazing journey. What we'd do is we'd handle the inspections on behalf of those clients, and for the first 6 years, I actually did inspections on pen and paper. And then the following 6 years, I carried on doing my inspection using the Property Inspect platform. So I was, in fact, a client of Property Inspect before I moved over and joined the team.
Fantastic. So can you tell us what are the different types of rental inspections and why are they important to conduct?
I love this question. So, you're all part of agencies. You all know that you're currently conducting inspections. But through my experience of dealing with different agencies, we had different requirements come through to my company. Those inspection types would include your ingoing or your move-in. Of course, you all use different terminology, but that's the tenant moving in. Very important to conduct that inspection, of course. It's a legal requirement, but not only that, you're also starting the base off on what that property looked like when the tenant moved in. And then the next type of inspection that would usually come across is the interim inspection. So an interim inspection is done when a tenant is still staying at the property and you're just going to go and have a look at that property while they're staying there. Now, the interim inspection is really important, and I find a lot of agencies are still not conducting this inspection. But the reason why I would encourage this inspection to be done is for a few reasons. So the first one is it gives you a very good idea of the maintenance that needs to be done inside of the platform. Inside of the property. So if you have a look at your interim inspection, if you're doing regular interim inspections, it will allow you the opportunity to pick up, for instance, a dripping tap. And before it starts, getting worse and becoming this major leak, which will then extend to the cupboards, and you'll have damages on your post form tops. If I can encourage you to do those type of inspections, you can prevent that type of maintenance. The next thing I picked up, because I did a lot of interim inspections in my own business when I was conducting inspections. And the interim inspections was also a beautiful platform, because I'd get to the property with the tenant and they'd say, I don't see why you need to be here. And look, Mr. Tenant, it's part of your contract. I need to be here. And then I'd start going through the property very respectfully. We don't open up the cupboards and dig into their private space. But then I'd start making notes of the things I was picking up. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, I noticed that is happening over there. And I'd always ask, have you advised the agency? No, I didn't get to that. And that's where you find that communication. It actually brings the communication between the tenant, the agency, and the landlord together. And you can structure your interim inspections in different ways. You can decide if you're going to do it periodically, so midterm to the contract. I would also suggest doing an inspection. You can call it an interim inspection before you decide to renew a lease, because that will give you brilliant insight as to how the property is being managed. You can have an excellent tenant in the sense of payments, but then get to the property and realize that it's been vandalized or it's not been well looked after. And then instead of extending the contract for another term, you can rather then look at cancelling that contract. So that's your interim inspections. And then this one's a bit versatile. I had some clients that asked me to go and do pre-exit inspections. So that's an inspection done with the tenant before they move out. Now, if you're doing this pre-exit inspection, it gives you, again, a good understanding of what the property looks like. And then by the time the tenant moves out, you'll do an exit or an out inspection. And that inspection, I always recommend, should be done when the property is empty. Because, of course, if we're doing it while the tenant is moving, you have the chance of them moving their fridge and damaging a wall in between. So those are the inspections that I would recommend that you implement in your business.
And what is a comparison inspection?
I love that one. So a comparison inspection would be and you can do multiple comparison inspections. So let me go for the first obvious choice. That would be a tenant moves in. So whether you're using technology to conduct that report, or if you're using the good old pen and paper, you would usually have your move-in inspection, and then right next to it, you would have your move-out inspection. And doing a comparison inspection and having it all in one platform, again, whether it's electronic or whether it's on pen and paper, really speeds up the inspection, but it also allows you the opportunity to note what the property situation was or how it looked when the tenants moved in. And then when they're moving out, if something has now changed. I could also suggest that when you're doing interim inspections, that you can do comparison inspections as well. And with property inspectors, it's very easy to do that. You'd pull the previous inspection and you can choose which one it is you want to compare to. And when you get to the property, you've got all your notes of that previous inspection. And at that point, you can then go through it and you can see what has changed since the previous inspection. So very important to do comparative inspections.
Fantastic. And how did you prepare for conducting inspections in your experience?
Yes. So preparations for inspections, we'll get to actually how we conduct inspections in another question. But in preparation for inspections, what I mean by that is, and I've spoken to so many agencies, when I was doing inspections on behalf of the agencies, I used to send out emails, or my team would send out emails to all the tenants that we were going to do inspections on behalf of. Okay. And that email would include all the pain points I'd come across over all the years and make sure that we try and nip them in the bud before we even get to that point. So a really good example is, for instance, one of the points that I would highlight is that now, Mr. Tenant, please, it's important that you need to join us on the inspection. If you choose not to join us on the inspection and have a representative, please let us know in advance. The next thing was, we would have so many tenants, and they did this to us all the time. They would go ahead and book an inspection at 7 o'clock in the evening, and we'd rock up at the property and they've got no prepaid electricity. And exactly. So we would then include that in that email that we'd send out ahead of time. And I would send this email before I even phoned a tenant. So it would include, please, you need to make sure that there's at least a minimum of 5 prepaid units on the electricity so that we can test the lights and such. The next thing that I'd include in there is that the inspection should take X amount of time. So we used to put on there an hour. The inspection didn't always take us an hour. And of course, if the place was really really badly damaged, it would take longer. But those are your every now and again circumstances. I would put that in there because I'd often get to the property, introduce myself, take the keys and put them in my back pocket, and then the tenant would turn around and go, I don't have time for this. I need to go. And people are moving, they're busy. But if you let them know ahead of time and they choose to leave before the inspection has been concluded, I then have proof that I advised them that they need to stay for the duration of the inspection. So that could be part of that preparation.
Yeah, and that's so important to make sure that they are present.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like how you send those, I always say with our staff as well, communication is key. You have to communicate exactly what you are expecting and them to you so that there's no miscommunication or disappointment.
Courtney, I love that. That was, in fact, the slogan for my company.
Really?
It was my company name, and at the bottom, it was communication is key. So I agree with you. Yes.
I would also say confirmation is key. If you're sending that email, get at least that they agree that they've received it. So there's no, discrepancy in claiming that they never received the preparation. So yeah.
I agree.
Then what I'd like to know next is specifically in your experience, what is the difference between pen and paper reports versus electronic reports?
And so much experience held there. So when I started my business, I was on pen and paper, and naturally we were growing. The difference between pen and paper reports is, and I think my biggest pain, especially when I speak into my current client platform, and they tell me you're doing pen and paper, and I always go back to them and I say, how's those photos? Because on pen and paper, firstly, the situation is dealing with the different handwritings. Okay, that's a whole problem on its own. Trying to differentiate, keeping that professional touch in there, it became a serious issue with our inspectors that we'd send out. The next thing is, as I mentioned, the photos. So you take in, and we would average anywhere between 200 to sometimes even 500 photos per unit. We're talking about your average townhouse. Now, of course, I'm not asking you to do that. We did that to cover the company because we obviously we're doing it on behalf of the agency. If I get a query back, I need to be able to show what the state was. But if I got a query that came out in about 6 weeks or 6 months from there, and they're going, Angelique, I just want to know about this wall, and going back to the photos and trying to distinguish this wall, is it for the bedroom? Is it for the lounge? And we came up with tips to try and make that easier, but it was still really time consuming. The inspection, when you're at the property, it feels like it's faster because we've been doing it that way for so long. So we go with our checklist and we take all our photos, and it doesn't feel like it's taken that long, but it's the work after the inspection that is a nightmare. And then keeping all your paperwork, when you have a query that comes up 2 years later, having to go into those boxes and go and get those original reports, it became an absolute admin nightmare. And once I moved over to electronic, it not only saved time for the physical inspection that was being taken, because we teach you structure on how to save that time, but it also helped on any queries. It's a click of a button and having your information on hand. At any point, if I got a call from an agency and they said, Angelique, I'd just like to know about this, I could simply take my cell phone, go into the platform and look at exactly what it is that we were dealing with.
And in your experience, do you find that a lot of people still rely on the pen and paper reports?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I must admit, I think it's the change. Everybody, you have certain people that are hesitant to change, and each one to their own on their comfortable levels. The thing is, I can guarantee you, if you're looking for growth, pen and paper is holding you back. I grew exponentially on the amount of inspections I could conduct and the way I could handle my queries quickly. Really, really quickly once I moved over to the electronic platform.
Yeah, but you're also making me very jealous because back in when I was 7 years old and we had to do snag lists on people are moving into a new building and there's going to be snags, and those snag lists had to be done together, and it was you had your hard board with your paper on top and your pen, and you'd go through, and they would hardly ever be present. I mean, this is all development of making the system better. And then you would go through and you'd do these snags, but did he choose those tiles and didn't he? Like, I'm super jealous. Like, if I had this system back then, it would have saved us human labor and also upset people and just it sounds amazing. I would definitely opt for it. I mean, for me, it wouldn't even be a discussion. I would just totally go for it.
I agree.
Just to make my life easier. I do anything to make my life easier.
I think there's a common factor of not only the change, but also the learning. Some people have fear of technology as much as they're using their cell phones. But and just very quickly, I have a beautiful story. I taught a lady at the age of 75 about 2 weeks ago how to use the software to conduct her inspections. And the feedback that I got back from her was amazing. She was so excited. She's like, Angelique, this is changing my life. Look at my report. Look at my photos. It's so simple. It's so easy. And I always go back to everybody and I say, it's not only about having the technology. You can have the tools. It's about how you use them and utilizing them correctly. And we guide our clients through that process. We hold their hands and we give them training so that they feel comfortable for that change. And that's important.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the next question too is I think vital for any inspection is the photos. So why are the photos so important, and how do you find the balance between how many to take?
Yes. Well, in my experience currently in my role and speaking to so many agencies, I'm still finding that so many agencies are only taking damaged photos. When I hear an agent telling me, no, I average about 40 photos, then I fear for them. And the reason for that is it's so much easier. Now, when you're taking 40 photos and you're doing the inspection, it feels all quick and easy. The problem is when it comes to sorting out that damage deposit, it is so much easier to sort out that query when you can go, okay, Mr. Tenant, here's a photo of your kitchen cupboard whole when you moved in, and here's a photo of it damaged. Now you need to pay. And that's why, so yes, there is a balance. If you're working with any other electronic platforms, you might find that, when you're trying to take the amount of photos that I was taking, for instance, your inspection can go up to 3 hours. Now, I would never expect that from you. We need to be in and out. Our platform allows you to take your bulk download photos in one section seamlessly and easily. And then you have a separate section for your damaged photos. And what's amazing about that is when you're sorting out your queries, you can then just simply go into the report and have a look at the damaged photos. And then when you need those bulk photos later on, you can tap into your report and share that with the tenant. So it's incredibly important. So if I may, sorry, just to end off that question, my recommendation in the sense of knowing if you have enough is I always recommend when I'm training my clients is take a couple of photos of the ceilings, the walls, the floors, cupboard doors open and cupboard doors closed for every room. If you've got those simple photos, guaranteed if there's any queries that come up later, somewhere in those photos, you're going to be able to resolve your queries.
Maybe I think for everyone listening, maybe repeat that again, what you recommend the photos are being taken on.
Yes. So my recommendation is for each room, kitchen, living area, bathroom, when you walk into that room, take general photos of the ceilings, the walls, the floors, cupboard doors open and cupboard doors closed, whether there are problems or not. That will help you out.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Just out of curiosity, how many photos do you take during your inspections?
So I was averaging between 300 to 500 photos for your general 2 to 3 bedroom unit. We would do a couple of what I always call mini mansions in Bedford View. Those inspections they were really lengthy, but we were looking at extra flats and cottages, and then we could go all the way up to 1,800 photos for those properties. So robust. I needed to make sure, and that's why I chose Property Inspect when I was when I was running my own business, because I needed to make sure the platform that I used was robust enough to handle the amount of photos I was taking.
Yes. That to me, that was a very interesting part of the discussion, because I've always wondered about this just in my own personal experience as well. From the, I want to say, client side, was unique to me to know what the agent is doing. So what is your take on tenants being present during an inspection?
This is really important because, again, speaking to so many different agencies, they have their own views and their own ways of conducting their reports. In South Africa, it is a legal requirement that the tenant is to join you at the inspection. Now, I know in saying this, I've done hundreds and hundreds of inspections. It's not always possible. That's why I always like to send out that pre-email to prompt the tenant that they need to be present. And if they choose not to be there, it's their choice. And they waive in their choice to be there. It is first prize to have the tenant present at the inspection. That way, if there's any disputes later on, you can say that the tenant was there, and you can. It is a legal requirement to have them there. Now, in saying that, on the rare occasion that the tenant well, it's not rare, it happens often. They'll drop the keys off at the office and you're doing that inspection without them. What's really nice about our platform is it allows you to have a section where you can send the report to the tenant. This is a feature that you can switch on and off. The reason why I'm bringing this up is on those occasions where the tenant doesn't join, when you complete the inspection, it will send them a copy of the report and it will be noted in the platform that they opened that email. So now you have proof that they couldn't join. You've got your comments on why they couldn't join, what happened in the situation, but you have proof that firstly, you tried to get them to join. So definitely send them an email before you go out so that if it goes further, you've got that proof and that backing behind you. And secondly, you've got proof that they opened the email. So if it goes any further, you've got that history to use as well.
That's vital to know, because even and I'm talking from a client or a tenant perspective, I've been in situations where an agent has conducted an inspection without even mentioning to me that I had to be there, or giving me the consequences of not being there in email. And that gives me a lot of ammo if I need to take legal proceedings, because there's no evidence of preparing me or informing me or advising me. So I think that's very vital, is that you cover yourself, that you back yourself with the tenant as far as possible.
Correct.
So vital feedback. Then the next question is, if an inspection is not done correctly, what are some of the consequences?
There are major consequences. So let's talk about the first one. If you, I still have some agencies where they hand in the ingoing inspection to the tenant and asking them to fill it out. If that's not done correctly, and then it comes to the exit inspection, you're doing comparisons, you can land up at the housing tribunal, and it's not going to be an easy battle if it's not being done correctly. Again, if you don't advise that the tenant should join you and you're doing it without the tenant and it goes to the housing tribunal, you're going to have an issue again as well. So it's really, really important to follow the steps and the tips that I've given you in the session so that you can prevent going to the housing tribunal in its entirety.
Fantastic. So I think, Angelique, we've gone through quite the main questions that we wanted to discuss. Is there any of the topics that you feel is vital to repeat? I know we had a lot of people joining halfway through our discussion as well. And I do see the comments say, compliments to the discussion on comparison inspections, because they were conducting it differently. There's a lot of points, I think, early on that was mentioned that the audience is saying, thank you, this is vital. Is there anything from our early points that you'd like to revisit before we address questions?
Yes, so there's a couple of points that I'd like to go over. The first one is your quality of photos. I know it's, for those of you that joined right in the beginning, it sounds like I'm hammering on this, but this is your tool. This is how you will be able to resolve queries, and how you'll be able to make sure that you have the confidence to move forward on anything that comes up. So my suggestion to everyone out there is take as many photos as you can. If you can't, and it's a very quick inspection, make sure the minimum amount of photos are the ceilings, the walls, the floors, cupboard doors opened and cupboard doors closed of every single room, whether there are problems or not. Be mindful of the photos that you take in. You can take your photo and move your camera around and land up with 40 blurred photos. Those aren't going to help you. Take a breath, spend the extra 10 minutes, because that's how long it will take to take those extra photos. Spend the extra 10 minutes getting those photos in today to save you hours and even days of trying to sort out queries later on. So that's the first thing that I'd like to mention. The second thing is, and to also be mindful of your preparation for your inspections. So before you go out and you conduct any inspections and before you even phone any tenants, I would recommend sitting down, looking at the pain points that you have in your business and going, you know what, this keeps on coming up every month. I have people that insist I must go out and do an inspection at 7 o'clock in the evening, and then I don't have electricity. Put that on the put that in there. And then I'd like to elaborate on that. Something that we haven't mentioned today, but I'd like to just bring that in is there's some things changing on the legal aspects, and I'm not going to go into that too much because I'm not a legal practitioner, but I find that a lot of agencies are going to be changing their contracts to bring those changes in. Okay. Now, without diving into it too much, if you're going to have a look at these pain points, you can look at bringing those into your contracts if you're looking at changing your contracts, so that it's covered in the contract right in the beginning where you mention, you know, these pain points, and you can always then refer back to the contract, because going in and having any disputes, it's easier to resolve it if it was already placed in your contract ahead of time. And then I'd like to also make mention of things have changed in the Act, and you have the opportunity to be able to charge for your inspections. It is shocking to hear how few agencies are carrying that cost. I'd like to encourage you, and I know it's a pain point for a lot of people where they go, my clients will not pay for this. We've already got a lot going on. This is we can't charge for this. I encourage you to feel your worth in your company and start charging. The average price for an inspection is 450 Rand. Average, that's just a going in the industry. And you can start putting those charges into your contracts so that you can recover the cost. And especially if you're moving over from a pen and paper platform into an electronic platform, that would be the easiest way to recover the cost of your now very professional report that you'll be sending over to your clients.
All right, so I think we can, if you're comfortable, Angelique, we can get into some of the questions. Great, so I just want to mention to our audience, our discussion allowed us to move into questions earlier, which I think is valuable to everyone here, because I'm sure there's going to be a question that you might be thinking but not asking. So please post your questions. We're going to use the next 30 minutes to go through them. So please don't hesitate to let us know what you'd like to know. Anything related to property inspect or demonstrations, that's where you can book a consultation with Angelique. We will post her contact details on the chat. Please use it, reach out to her directly if you want a demonstration on property inspect or want to discuss their solutions very directly. But what we want to do in this session is share information. We want to give advice and guidance. Yeah. All right, so let's start with, I think, Johanna Diedrich. Johanna is asking. Oh, yes.
Caroline, sorry. Yeah, I have also green ticked everything that still needs, you know, all the questions that we can address. So I'll keep doing my green ticking down the bottom.
That helps a lot. Thank you so much. So let's start with Johanna. She's our first green tick. So Johanna says, hi there. What should we do if the tenant does not want to give interest for the interim inspection to be done?
Sorry, just repeat that. You broke up for 2 seconds.
Sorry about that. What should we do if the tenant does not want to give entrance for the interim inspection to be done?
Okay, excellent question. Include it in your contract. That is the easiest way. And what I found through my experience when I was working for an agency, they had it in their contract 15 years ago. It was part of their standard procedure. And what you do is you state in your contract that you'll give them 48 hours notice. I think 48 or 72. Don't quote me on the hours. But you state in your contract that you'll give them notice, but that an interim inspection will be done midterm, or you can pick your choices on how you'd like to do that. As long as it's in your contract, you can refer back to that. A tenant that refuses interim inspections on a regular basis, those contracts shouldn't be renewed.
Great. Next one is from Lena. Lena is asking, is there a specific app that you would recommend for the inspections? Well, obviously.
Yes, so I'd like to dive into that. I would highly, highly recommend Property Inspect. And that's not just because I work there. The reason why I'd recommend Property Inspect versus, the few competitors that are out there is, firstly, the way that the photos are taken. So it allows you to take, we got what we call a rapid fire camera action. inspection. It allows you to take one photo after the other without having to crop and save, and the quality of the photos in the report allows you to zoom in and see the defects. So yes, definitely a big advocate for Property Inspect. Tried and tested.
Of course. Okay, let's go to the next one. So Nadine is asking, what about wear and tear? Properties need a paint from time to time.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into the legalities on this too much because it's definitely a grey area. So that's where you could include your interim inspections and make your landlords aware of the wear and tear. If you've been part of any other discussions in the past, the general census is that if a tenant has stayed in a property, I think it's either 2 or 5 years, that a lot of the maintenance will fall back onto the landlord because naturally they need to look after their property. However, if you take lots of photos on your ingoing inspection and you can prove that it was done, that the damage occurred unnecessarily, so there's a big punch hole in the door, then you can go back to the tenant and make them pay for those damages because you have proof that when they moved in that the cupboard door was in fact whole. But moving parts, those become a bit tricky, hinges, and I'm not going to open this because they're a can of worms. We know what this is. Fair wear and tear is always a touchy subject, but definitely, again, photos help you clear that up.
Awesome. It does sound like photos are vital to this whole discussion. Ivana is asking, can we make use of Property Inspect personally, or does it have to be through a company registration?
Okay, so you can use it personally. I'm taking it that you're an agent and you want to do your inspections and you're working for an agency, 100%. So you can definitely use it personally. I would encourage, because we do partner up with a couple of different partners, that if your agency is with the likes of PayProp or Rios or PropWorks, that you reach out to us and we can give you some more advice, because we have beautiful integrations that will then also save you time through those partners.
Fantastic. Charlotte, for what it's worth, there are 2 people I've removed from the lobby because they keep jumping in even though they get admitted. So if they request why they've been denied, their names also said unverified. So I think just for security purposes, just keep that in mind. Okay, Courtney, I'm going to the ones that have hearts. Do I ignore those ones or do we go with that ones?
You're just looking for green ticks.
Green ticks, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, Leonie is our next green tick. She says, can I keep my keys at home for my rentals or does it have to be at the agency?
That's an interesting, very, very interesting point. And again, this is not legal advice. I would definitely go with something that you are comfortable with, maybe a key safe, a box where you can put your keys inside and have that locked up. It depends on the area that you stay in. If you service in Joburg Central, take your keys home, don't leave them at the office. So I can't give you the legal terms on this, but you definitely want to keep them where they're safe. If that's the best advice I can give you.
I think you did answer this question, but let's go through it anyway. It just says Solid Rock Inc. Angelique, what do you charge on average per interim inspection?
Okay, so when I was running my business, I had my sets of charges. You, as a company, can look at charging. For interim inspections, I do it a lot less. Your ingoing and your exits, the average current pricing structure is 450 Rand. I would suggest charging about 200 Rand. But for that person that asked that question, please bear in mind, I'm now working for the software company, Property Inspect. So I'm no longer offering the service of conducting inspections on your behalf anymore. I'm sorry about that.
All right. Then we've got Margaret. Margaret is saying, let me just double check I'm not skipping anyone. Does it look like I am? Okay.
No, you're
Margaret,
on track. You're on track.
I'm having an inspection done this weekend. I live in Cape Town and our 2 properties are on the West Rand. I unfortunately cannot be there in person. Is that Cape Town or Centurion? Maybe I read that wrong. But I unfortunately cannot be there in person. Can I do this directly over video chat as I'm a sales rental agent?
Yes. Yes, so our platform does allow you to do live inspections. It's not widely used because bearing in mind, again, we're crossing that barrier. You should be there in person because you should have the tenant with you. But if you can't, our platform does offer that you can do the live inspections with the tenants and have them sign it off while they're at the property.
All right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Sorry, guys, I'm just jumping between the attendees and the chat. Okay. Oh, I think I lost my train here.
I think we've got Leonie.
Yes.
What happens if a tenant moves out with the keys and you have a locksmith to open these properties, and the rental agent says they don't like to take that responsibility at all?
Okay, so I'd like to give you some tips on this. And this is, again, why I encourage the interim inspections. So when you're doing an ingoing inspection, a move-in inspection, I highly recommend, a lot of agencies just take a photo of the bunch of keys, if that. I highly recommend that you write down the key numbers for the keys. Okay, this is both on internal doors and external doors. If you have a tenant that leaves with the bunch of keys, it would be a lot cheaper to go and replace the key, gain access into the property, and then try and adjust if you're going to change the locks. So that would be my recommendation, to prevent having to get a locksmith out at an unduly hour to try and gain access into the property.
All right, then Solid Rock Inc. Is asking, who do you charge for the inspection, tenant or landlord?
I like this question. So according to the act that's coming out now, they've opened it up that you can split it 50-50. Different agencies have different protocols. Some of them charge otherwise. I usually recommend to those that aren't charging yet that I would suggest you charge the landlord for the I suggest you charge the tenant for the ingoing inspection, because that protects the deposit, and then the landlord for the out or the exit inspection, because that protects their property. But you have the ability to split it 50-50 should you wish, on all types of inspections. So the flexibility for you to decide how you'd like to charge is there, which is amazing, because different areas have different requirements. And naturally, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're not the preferred agency because you're charging one or the other. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that semi-answers Monique's question as well. Could you confirm the following, please? And I assuming these are the different inspections. Ingoing, charge the tenant, question mark. Outgoing, charge the landlord, question mark. Interim, who will be charged this fee?
So I've got a 50-50 split for those that are charging for the interim inspections. They will either charge the interim inspection back to the landlord, because again, it's bringing that communication on the maintenance, making sure that their post forms aren't swelling because of a leaking, dripping tap. And then I have some agencies, because they're charging the ingoing and the outgoing, that they cover the costs for the interim inspections. So again, completely up to you. You can split that according to what you feel will work for your platform.
Yeah. Abram's asking, do you charge inspection on incoming and outgoing?
Yes, it's recommended, definitely.
That's the next one. Madeline is asking, must the inspection be done by the rental agent, or can an admin person do this as well?
It's a brilliant question. I would recommend, if you have the choice, that you have a dedicated admin person conducting your inspections, so that you are creating that structure. And this is only if you have the choice. Not every platform, not every agency has a capacity to do this. But if you're a larger agency, I would have a dedicated inspector going out and doing the inspections. Of course, when it comes to month end, I know what that's like. We were averaging 180 to 200 exit inspections over a period of like 5 days. It got intense. Then you can have everybody jumping in. But for your general, if you have the capacity, have a specific inspection person, because then you can teach them a structure that you require, and they can go out there with those fresh eyes, making sure that they're getting everything involved in that inspection.
All right, I'm going to the next question. I just want to mention also to our audience, I see there are a few hands up. Keep in mind, we're not going to unmute mics. That can cause a lot of chaos. If we start with one person, we have to allow the next. So please post your questions in the chat. All right. The next one is Noel. Morning, when you discover something that you didn't note on the exit inspection, what do I do? Because client won't agree. Don't know if that makes sense. Okay,
so there's
morning. Yeah,
Sorry.
did you get that one?
I got that one, and I must admit it's a little bit confusing, because how did you discover that you missed something? Did you discover it by going through your photos? If you have a photo, you can still use that as a dispute. So if you forgot to mention that there were 2 nails in the wall in the lounge, but you took a photo of it, you can still refer back to those photos. Again, hammering this, guys, but it's important. If you noticed it afterwards and it wasn't noted in the inspection, this becomes a gray area, because was it in fact there when they moved in? Did they put the nails in the wall, or were they already there when it was moved in? So again, really important ingoing inspections will resolve all of that. If you leave it open for discussion by only taking damage photos, this is where you now need to come up with a solution for this issue, and it's not easy.
But I think that's important. It's like I haven't stayed in this part of real estate. So I think it's really important. I mean, you said that people generally just take photos of damages. And yes, of course I did. I also took videos of the property because I got my fingers burned too many times. So, so I think what you're saying about taking photos of everything is important. Sorry to harp on it, but how else will you compare? And I think that's a great, and it's simple, it's easy, it adds an extra, however big the property is, minutes onto your inspection. But I think down the line you'll spend many more minutes trying to fix the problem.
Exactly.
So rather just do it properly the first time.
And Courtney, I'd like to add on to that. Our platform also allows you to take short videos. I don't recommend taking videos only and taking out the photo aspect, because later on when you need to sort out a query, you spend more time watching videos than you do actually going through the photos.
Yes.
But our platform allows you to take videos for those leaking taps, those locking mechanisms, things that a photo just can't explain well enough. The video option is really, it works beautifully for our clients, because they can show off that leak. They can show off how that key is stuck in that locking mechanism, making it easier to go through that later.
Makes sense. I see, Angelique, there are quite a few repeat questions here about property inspection monthly charges. I think perhaps if you can address them as a whole quickly.
Perfect. So I can touch that very lightly. I'll start off with, we do bespoke pricing models depending on your structure. So how we break that down is how many properties you have inside of your system and how many users require access to the system. So our standard package allows you 100 properties, and it allows you a single user, and that would be 850 excluding VAT. But I would highly recommend that you reach out to me. My email address is in the chat. Pop me an email. I can send through the pricing for your structure. We have so many different types of structures out there for the agency, so it's better if I do a bespoke for you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Georgie, just to answer your question, we are going to share a recording of the session. We normally share it within 48 hours, depending on the availability of our video editors and our marketing team, but you will get the recording for sure.
She's being way too kind.
Yeah.
But we will let you all know you've registered for the event. So afterwards we'll be issued with a list of who was here, and we'll make sure that you do know. Okay. Yes. And it'll be on our website.
100%.
I'm just covering Colin's back just in case, you know.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Then we've got, unfortunately, this person doesn't have a name. It just says meeting guest. Thank you for this informative and insightful session. I would like to know, what certificates do I need to become an inspector?
Okay, so at the moment that you don't require any accreditation. There are some companies out there that guide and assist you and help for some forms of accreditation. I would strongly suggest, if you are managing your own estate agency, that you don't just go and take a Joe off the street and get him to do inspections. Rather take someone who has the knowledge and has conducted inspections before. But we're trying to change that. We're trying to get it as an accredited, recognized field in our industry, because there is such a huge need for it. But at the moment, you don't need any accreditation.
All right, then Leonie's asking another question. This tenant moved out without letting the rental agency, I'm assuming letting them know. So now the rental agency says they are not going to pay for the locksmith and said the owner must pay for that. Now the owner has to pay the locksmith because they said it is not their responsibility to pay for the locksmith. Who must pay for that? The people moved out 3 months ago and they did not let the owner know about that. I'm now selling these properties and they only let the owner know now.
Okay, so the first thing is I just want to confirm that you got a damaged deposit. That is absolutely vital. Now, I'd imagine, we'd have to ask a few more questions. Did they not pay their rent? Were they outstanding on their rent? If you weren't aware of it, I'm assuming they did pay their rent. So this has been the tenant, obviously. So I would then recommend that you take the changing of the lock prices off the tenant's damaged deposit. In your contract, however, just check your contract, because of course I'm giving you advice to a standard contract. If you have a contract in place and you have a deposit in place, you'll be able to refer back to the fact that they should have given X amount of times of notice, and that they should be returning the keys back to the property or to yourself, and then you can take it off the deposit.
All right, then I'm moving to Georgina's question. I hope I'm going to read this correctly, so please, I think Angelique will get the context before I will. So Georgina says, hi, but I thought it is the agent's responsibility to do inspections simply because you are being mandated to service the clients. Why pay inspection fee?
Okay, so there's two ways I can take up this question. If you're comfortable with your agents doing the inspections, and they currently are, please don't change it. I'm not encouraging you to change your process. I'm just encouraging on how you're conducting your inspections, in the sense of how much information. So giving you tips to try and speed up those queries that come up later. If you have the capacity as a larger agency to have dedicated inspectors inside of your team, I encourage that, so that your agents can have freed up time to go and sign up those last minute leads, because they do come in and they can focus on, key handovers, and you can have someone else doing the inspection. So there are different ways that you can conduct your inspections and how you can have your structure. I'm not saying you must do it this way. I'm just giving you your different options.
All right, let's go to Godfrey. So Godfrey says, having someone to do with inspections, will it not be a problem? Because the PPRA says only the practitioner with an FFC can interact directly with a client, that is inspection, listing, selling. I hope that's exactly how it's written. So I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Okay, so again, I'm going to say this. I don't give the legal advice. I don't want you guys to quote me on the legal aspects of things. But we when I was running my business, we had a good standing. And what would happen is, before we went out and did the inspection, that company would send out an email to their tenants advising them that we're doing the inspection on their behalf, and that we were a contractor company they gave us permission to do so. So, and I'm sure they had that it's set up in their contract as well. So yes, again, I'm not saying you must do it this way. I'm just saying that if you would like to be able to hone in more on your inspections, that you can change it up.
All right. Then we're going to Noel or Noel. I apologize if I'm mixing up your name's pronunciation. I currently use pen and paper. If I switch to digital, what device is this on? Tablet, phone, etc. Just wondering how this actually works. Thank you.
Love the question. Love the question. I'm excited that you're open for the change. Mm-hmm. So my strongest suggestion when using Property Inspect as your chosen platform is no device older than 5 years. Bearing in mind we have this robust program. It doesn't take a lot of space, but it needs that little bit of memory in the background to be able to work efficiently. So no device older than 5 years. You can use a iPhone, you can use Android, you can use a tablet as well. And what I would suggest, before you even go and buy any devices, even if your phone is perhaps on the 4-year line, sign up with a trial, test out the program, and then check how your phone works. Don't go and buy new devices before you put the application on your current devices. That would be my suggestion.
Fantastic. All right. Next question is from Roy. When will the changes to the Act be implemented?
Okay, again, I'm not going on the legal aspects. I just recently came off a roadshow where I had a legal person at my side. So what I have referred to, I can confirm that was because I got that advice from the lawyer that's handling that. But I'm not going to touch on the legal aspects. I would suggest, going back to whoever's drafting your contracts and speaking to your legal team and getting the advice from them. I don't want to go on to time zones here.
Yes. All right, then we've got Janine. Fully furnished rentals. How comprehensive should the inventory? Broken glass, where other small things considered wear and tear, or for the tenant account? Any advice on furnished rentals? Thank you.
Yes. I've got plenty of advice on furnished rentals. So what the beauty of our platform is, you are able to create different types of templates. So when you first come on board, I always suggest, a specific type of template, and I talk you through it. However, you can create specific templates for furnished units. So you can allow the capacity to be able to have your structure already in place, to be able to put those photos in for your type of furnished units. So if you're dealing with artwork, you can have a section for artwork. Cutlery and crockery, you can have a section for that. My best advice again is having it subdivided, especially kitchens. Kitchens have a lot going on in them, and then just laying it out. So when you're doing an ingoing inspection, take out your utensils drawer section, put it on the counter, lay out what it is you're looking at, and take photos. And then that will help you later on for sorting out those disputes.
So Margaret says, my tenants are now complaining about the increase coming up as I've upgraded our property as per their request. It was mentioned that they will pay extra for the upgrade in closing the veranda. It's done, and now they are making excuses about the extra payment. I was told that the property has improved its value. Now I'm responsible to pay the extra amount, and they have the full benefit.
Okay,
That
so this is
a bit legal.
It is, and I'm not going to go into it too much, but I am going to touch on it. So some advice that I learned through this recent road trip that I was on is, anything that you're going to discuss with a tenant needs to be in writing. So your first thing is, if you're going to be making any changes, or you're going to do an addendum to the contract itself, you need to make sure that it's in writing. That's firstly. Secondly, make sure that both parties sign it off. Don't have agents unless they have the permission from the landlord. Don't have agents sign off on behalf of the landlords, because then that will fall through. So anything that you're going to charge for, you can, as long as it's not just a spoken discussion. That doesn't stand anymore. You need to make sure it's in writing and both tenant and landlord have signed it off. That's the advice I can give you there.
All right, and then I think the last one, and I've read this question in advance, and I think Annie, before I give Angelique an opportunity to answer, I think why she mentioned it 300 to 500 photos is that's based on her experience in the sizes of houses that she's done, but it's not it's not required. It's just recommended that you do take enough photos. But she is saying she was worried about the amount of photos for a 3-bedroom house, because then you'll need a separate phone to accommodate all those photos due to memory and space.
I love that question, and there's so much to it, so I'm going to take a few minutes just to answer that. Okay, so firstly, quite correct. I was taking that amount of photos because I was doing it on behalf of the agency, so I needed to cover my company, so I didn't have bills thrown at me for things that went wrong. Again, the minimum required photos that I would suggest, no matter how many bedrooms you've got in that property, is for each individual room. That includes your kitchen and your living area and your bathroom. Just take a couple of photos of the ceiling, walls, floors, cupboard doors open and cupboard doors closed on top of your damaged photos. Okay, so that's my first bit of advice. The second part of that I really love is with Property Inspect. Once you've completed your inspection, sorry, just give me 2 seconds. Once you've completed your inspection and you sync it back into our platform, it automatically takes the photos off your phone. You no longer have to go and manually delete all those photos. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you have multiple devices, you can download the program onto both devices so that you can do property X, Y, and Z on this device and property ABC on that device. You can also take a power bank with you. So if you're doing plenty of inspections for that day, this is part of the prep work, take a power bank with you, take your phone charger, take your 2-prong plug, and while you're working on device A, have device B charging as well. So yes, I understand. And then also just to mention, when you join up, or should you choose to join up with Property Inspect, we offer free weekly training sessions. And I'm not telling you this to sell it. I'm telling you this because I always encourage our brand new clients to join the training sessions so that we can teach you how to use the templates effectively, so that you're not spending 3 hours in the inspection, where you're spending an hour to an hour and a half on a really bad place versus 3 hours, because of the structure that we teach on how to take the photos. Okay.
Fantastic. All right, Courtney and Charlotte, I'm just going to quickly add spotlight to your views as well, so that we can just do our conclusion. So I want to say to every single person who attended and with your wonderful engagement in our chat. We do apologize if we didn't get to every single question. If you do have very specific questions for Angelique, her contact details have been shared numerous times in the chat. Just scroll back, you'll find it, and you can reach out to her directly. The alternative is to go to Property Inspect's website and find the contact details there as well. And then, of course, Courtney, McKenna, and Charlotte are also in this call. Their contact details have also been shared for any queries related to property education and training, and they can obviously also direct you to the right people related to your queries. But of course, I think just a conclusion from you as well.
Thank you so much, Angelique. It was so informative. I know there was a lot of questions based on on actual rental inspect, which is not where we were going with this. We were advising the audience, and I think you gave them so much. I mean, even me, I mean, I'm just like so interested in it, but you just gave out so much valuable information and tools to prevent chaos later down the line. So I really appreciate that you've taken the time to address these questions with our audience. And yeah, thank you very much. And a lot of you are asking about the recording. We will send it out to you as we've discussed. And I have also just said, if there's any of these direct questions we've missed, we have shared your details, as Colleen said. So thank you very much. And thanks to our audience. We absolutely love having you join us. It's so nice to have so many people be interactive and interested in the topic. And please keep coming. And also, if you want to suggest the next topic to us, please, Courtney at propacademy.co.za, pop it through to us and we'll help you out. Make it this an interesting session that we can all join.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Caroline,
so
for hosting like a machine as usual.
Always.
We could never do it without you. Thank you very much.
No, and thank you, Angelique. You've been a fantastic guest speaker. We appreciate your time, and I'm sure we're going to see you again soon.
100%. And guys, thank you for the platform. It's always lovely sharing my journey and giving those tips and tricks out. So again, thank you very much for the platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much. To our audience, we are going to conclude the session now. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and the weekend's almost here. Enjoy. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.